Well, there is much speculation as to what U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's policy for Africa will look like as he focuses on domestic problems and promises he made to the electorate during his campaign. Africa 54's Esther Githui Ewart has researched the issue and has this policy look ahead.
Throughout his presidential campaign, Donald Trump revealed little about his foreign policy priorities, and now many Africans wonder if his administration will engage constructively with the continent. Former U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Robin Renee Sanders, has worked for the administrations of both Republicans and Democrats, and say both parties agree on a number of critical issues on Africa.
Even today, we have Electrify Africa, which is a bipartisan legislation. We have AGOA. So I'm hoping that that same kind of spirit of bipartisanship to keep some of these things continues into the next administration.
A bipartisan agreement in 2015 extended the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act until 2025 with the aim of expanding U.S. trade and investment in sub-Saharan Africa. Jeffrey Gordon, a U.S. foreign policy advisor and a national security expert, says he is optimistic about the incoming administration.
Certainly he wants strong ties with Africa. He wants strong economic development between the United States and Africa. So economic development and strong business ties would be something to look forward to for a Trump White House.
In 2009, China overtook the U.S. as Africa's largest trading partner and may benefit if America fails to engage with the continent. Ngozi Bell, an advocate for small business administration, says a Trump presidency should be a source of hope for the continent.
So when we go back to our President-elect Trump, being a good businessman, if you recognize that the world is going after this continent, where 65% of the population is going to be the biggest growth population on the planet, then I assume that he's going to look at it from the perspective of the benefit to this country and how that win-win needs to be created. And I think we have to be hopeful about that.
American University professor Kwaku Nwoama cautions Africans who may be pessimistic not to disengage with the Trump administration, saying no one knew how much the administration of former U.S. President George W. Bush would mean for Africa.
If you compare what Bush did on the continent to speeches that Barack Obama gave, they don't compare. Look at PEPFAR, for example, which has saved African lives. Programs that really put money on the continent. So my plea to Africans is that we cannot disengage from working with the Trump administration.
Critics of U.S. policy toward Africa point to America's alleged slow response when the Ebola epidemic hit the continent. However, when U.S. troops arrived in the hardest hit areas of West Africa, they trained 500 health workers per week, eventually bringing the epidemic under control.
They did that because they recognized that the global world affects the United States. It affects its economy, it affects its people. So I think we have to remember that whatever is done for Africa, it's really done for America.
During his presidential campaign, Trump spoke strongly against terrorism, and many hope he will see Africa's security as a vital concern for America and the world. Esther Githui Ewart, VOA News, Washington.